Andy Kovszun, welcome to Let's Be Frank.
Thank you.
How are you feeling today?
So good. I'm really glad to be here. It's my first time ever.
I'm so excited to have you here and finally to be meeting you. I feel like we should just start by letting everyone know that you just returned from one of your major surf trips last week. We're going to get into your crazy lifestyle and this amazing career you've built for yourself soon. But can you just give us a quick debrief on where you went, why you went, and what living on a boat with 15 other girls is like?
My goodness. It is a wild ride. So I host them usually in Indonesia and the Maldives. This one was in Indonesia. They are always on surf charters. So we're on a boat and it's through the Mentawai Islands, which is
beautiful.
Chain of islands off the coast of Sumatra. Really amazing place to visit if you ever surf. Do you surf?
I have in Hawaii, I believe.
Yeah.
But not continuously.
Hawaii's an
I would
amazing
love to get
place.
into it though. It's so much fun.
It is so much fun. It's just such a fun, clean, healthy hobby. And the one thing is it takes over your lifestyle. So be prepared. But to answer your question, it was 15 girls, 10, 11 days on a boat.
Incredible.
And we basically just surf and have fun and hang out and we just get to connect with one another. I always co-host with a surf photographer. So Kate Myers, she's quite well known in the industry and she teaches a component of surf photography if anyone's interested.
Yep.
I talk a bit about content creation if anyone wants to do that, but it's a really relaxed environment and it's just a way for girls to connect with other surfer girls.
A good mix of learning and having fun and hanging out and girl time, I bet. I always like to start by going back to the beginning with my guests so we can get the full picture of your life and how you got to where you were and are. So you grew up on an island in St. Martin and you moved between St. Martin and Florida. What was your childhood like growing up constantly surrounded by water?
You've done your research.
I have.
Very impressed. It was frankly amazing.
I bet.
I have never.
The dream.
Yeah, it really was. It was beach every afternoon after school, chicken nuggets, ocean time. It was a really special childhood. Thank you to my parents for that. I have never really known anything other than living around, surrounded by the water, surrounded by the ocean. But I suppose it means that I was just very comfortable, always in the water, outdoors. We were very active. It was a very, outdoorsy childhood.
And what was your relationship like with school? Were you academic? Did you enjoy going to school?
I can't say I did. I think I did when I was very young and it was just kind of non-serious and fun. And then coming into high school, I got really not bored, but just like I didn't like that structured 8 a.m., 5 p.m. situation from a very early age, actually. So I was homeschooled for a bit. I really just wanted to have freedom my parents wanted to travel. Yeah. So I just wanted that freedom to be able to go with them. So I was homeschooled for a little bit for high school.
How did you find that?
It was good. Look, I learned very early on to manage myself and to...
It's definitely a big factor in homeschooling.
Huge. Were you homeschooled?
I was for a short period of time as well.
Oh,
and
there you go.
The time management that you have to have within yourself, I know is a very strong factor.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I liked it. I wasn't very good at time management and holding myself accountable.
Look, I won't say I was learning for long hours every day. I was probably doing 3 to 4 hours and then gallivanting, and then when it came time to exams, I'd like cram everything in.
Me too.
But it prepped me for uni like really well. I went into uni and I was like, this is not hard at all.
The time management skills that come with it.
Yeah.
You started your modeling career very young and we'll get into that. But what did you have as a vision for yourself? What was your dream job as a kid? What did you think you were going to end up doing?
I think if you ask my friends, they would say that I always said that I'd be a model.
Yeah.
I think I always saw myself as some sort of entrepreneur, some sort of like running my own show. I didn't know exactly what that looked like, but modeling has always been such a huge part of my life. And I think it just opened a lot of doors for me wherever I was. So I think truthfully, I probably always saw myself modeling even from a very early age. I was really into it when I was a teen. And then, it's just evolved into whatever it is now. But yeah.
And you started when you were 15. So when you were a teenager, what was it like joining that industry at such a young age, as it is such a mature and fast-paced industry?
Yeah. There was no social media when I first started. It was still very old school-ish, and it was really intimidating. You'd get all those really beautiful, I started in Miami, and you get all these like really beautiful Brazilian Victoria's Secret like looking models, and here's 15-year-old me fresh out of my braces, just kind of like walking around thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be one of these girls. And it was all such a huge learning curve, but it taught me professionalism from a really early age. It was hard, I think, comparison-wise, and I think also as well with like body image and all that. I was surrounded by my parents. They were like really protective, so that was good. But it was a struggle, I think, with mental health and all that stuff. You had to be very strong.
I mean, definitely if you're up against 20, 22-year-olds and you're a 15 that's still developing and coming into yourself and learning about yourself against these 20-year-olds that have been in the industry probably longer than you have.
Yeah.
I could assume that would be a lot.
Yeah, it was all a lot. And at one point I was like, I wasn't sure if I could do it to the level that was expected of me. Yeah. So at one point I did decide to just set it aside and go back to school. I felt it was very important to get my education along with that, because I just realized that there was a lot of competition. There were a lot of girls, and you just had to have a little bit of a backup plan just in case.
And you have said in previous interviews that you found it to not always be honest and supportive. Can we dive a little bit deeper into that? And if there was any particular experiences that led you to feel that way?
I think honesty in modelling, it's a lot better now, for sure. And I think as well in Australia in particular, people are much nicer about a lot of things. But having been to like the New York offices, the London offices, it was being told one thing, or being told that you're going to be this and this and this, but then I guess the execution of that not really following through. Yeah. So you'd have stars in your eyes.
Empty promises.
Empty promises. You'd think that, tomorrow you're going to be shooting for Vogue, but in fact you're shooting in a dumpster for a test shoot, and you're like, why am I in my underwear? And all this weird stuff that you have to really go through the hard yards. They put you through a lot to kind of test you almost when you're younger, just so that you have that experience behind you. Not always honest, just in terms of expectations and what things are going to be and what you're being told. And getting jobs is a very hard thing to do when you're like...
And the rejection.
The rejection
and
is
the
really
not
hard.
Hearing in the end at all, because that's how it goes normally, right? You just don't
the percentage of jobs that you get versus the things that you go cast for and do is it's ridiculous. I think you'd get, for every 100 castings you go to, you get one job. Like, you just never know when your next paycheck was going to be, or when you get
competition.
Paid. Yeah.
Then you moved to Paris in your early 20s for university. Is that right?
Yes.
What was that transition like, moving from St. Martin Island life, the heat, to Paris?
It was a huge adjustment. My grandmother lived about 2 hours up the coast on the beach in France, and I would run there every weekend just because I needed the ocean air. Looking back, I had such a fun time. It was just a different little parenthesis in my life where it was city life, and I had a great school, and I'd made great friends, and coming out of homeschooling, that was a huge thing for me too, having this like amazing group of friends and people that I could connect with on a just like more of an everyday basis, and living there, being independent, huge adjustment. I wouldn't live there again. No. But I'm really glad I did it. Super glad.
And what made you go with Paris for university over America? You grew up going between St. Martin and Florida. What made you go for Paris?
First of all, the price. US universities are not cheap. I am not an American citizen, so I don't think there was any way for me to get a scholarship. I didn't really look into it that much. I'm half French, so it was much more feasible for me to access a university there and be able to afford it. And also they had a really great exchange program with a university here in Australia.
Right.
And I'd visited Australia when I was 15, had such an amazing time with my parents on holiday, and I just looked at it and I was like, I'm coming back here. I'm going to live here. I don't know what it is. I just thought everything was so vibrant and happy. And coming from Florida, everything is vibrant and happy and beautiful, but it's such an old state. People just go there to retire.
Yeah.
Here it was just like people running around. It was so young, and I was like, this is the best country in the world. So yeah, I picked that university because it had an exchange program with Sydney. And yeah.
You've just brought me right into my next question, your exchange. So you went from St. Martin to Paris to Sydney. Mm-hmm. You have just said that you came here, you loved it. What kind of ticked you over the edge to do the exchange and come back here? How long were you supposed to be here for too? Before your exchange was supposed to end?
I think I was only supposed to be here a year, if my memory serves me right, but I knew I was going to stay, I think immediately. I just told my parents it was a year. I'm an only child, so they were devastated. Oh. They really did think I was going to go.
Do they live here or do they still live in
My
St.
mum
Martin?
lives in Florida, yeah. Beautiful. So they're still there, but she visits every once and again, and I'll visit next year. So we see each other. But yeah, it was a huge adjustment for them, me moving halfway across the world.
Yeah. Once your exchange was supposed to be coming to the end after a year, what made you choose finally that, yes, I'm going to stay, I'm going to be staying in Sydney? Did it affect your career path choice or anything like that?
I felt like there was a lot more opportunity here, to be honest. I didn't feel like I was done with my studies. I'd studied business, graduated here, a business degree, and I wanted to learn more. So I did a journalism degree and I just prolonged my visa here. And that kind of opened the doors for me to start working in journalism and magazines. And I started writing. I started interning it was a digital magazine at the time. It was called Sportlux, I think. That was really eye-opening. It was a great experience. And I just felt like I was getting so many more opportunities living here. And I felt really free and like anything was possible. In France, things are a little bit more sequential and bureaucratic, in my opinion. So it was a bit hard to move up the ranks and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was a mix of everything. Still figuring it out. And here seemed like a really good place to do that.
And I just want to clarify just for me, did you do your exchange in Sydney and then stay in Sydney, or have you gone anywhere else but you just loved Sydney straight away?
Yeah.
It was just Sydney?
It was love at first sight. I've never really lived outside of Sydney. It's always been here on the northern beaches. So
I mean, it is beautiful here, so I can't blame you. I love coming here as well. You then moved into content creation and created your company, No Shoes, No Worries. How did the transition going from modeling to content creation go? It can be such also a competitive and oversaturated industry. What was that transition like for you?
I felt like I had more control over my career with content creation. It was another avenue for me to diversify my income with. I'd learned a lot working as an editorial writer for an influencer who had a online website. And I just, through a lot of observation, I just kind of watched what she did and felt like I could do the same thing in my niche. And it was really liberating finding that sense of creativity again, because with modeling, it's quite limited with what you can do. You show up on set, you kind of wear what they want, dress how they want. Everything is what the client wants. And here was something where it was very interpretive.
You can have control.
Could have control. So it was a very natural, I think, progression into what I like to do.
And was there a point where you realized that you could combine your love for surfing, the ocean, and content creation?
Yeah, with the blog, it started off as a blog, the company.
I did see that.
Was just me practicing my writing skills for journalism. And it was also just a way for me to write down about what I loved. Yeah. Because I was writing for health and wellness at the time. And I really wanted to work for brands like Roxy and Billabong. I was very much into my surfing. And it was also a way for me to get noticed. I was quite strategic with everything. I was just like, blogging was a thing at the time.
Yeah.
So it was still happening and I was just doing what I could.
I love a blog.
You still do?
So
you
fun.
still read blogs?
Yeah. I think they're so fun. And it's a good way for people to say their story as well.
True. I feel like it's more into like video blogging now.
Yeah, there is definitely more vlogging now.
But yeah, good old-fashioned written blog. I don't see them around anymore.
No. Yeah, every now and then. But when you started your surfing journey, just your personal surfing journey, was there a moment that you thought that you could bring your love for also surfing the ocean and empowering women and make it something more?
Everything's always been a very natural evolution, and it not that I've planned everything out, but opportunities have come to me. Sorry. Opportunities have come to me where I just followed them and they sort of presented themselves as these new avenues.
Amazing, yeah.
So with the blog and the surfing and all that stuff, I just started going on surf trips. I was invited on one and it kind of evolved into me realizing there was this niche where women wanted to connect with one another and go on these trips and also maybe model or content create. And it's very, very niche. But I was like, hey, I think there's something in this. And so one of the charters that I'd been on had asked me if I'd be interested in hosting something. At the time I was teaching yoga and I was very much into yoga, and they asked me if I wanted to be the yoga teacher on board, which I think I said yes, but I don't think I ended up actually doing any yoga. And I didn't know if I could do it, but I wanted to try and put a boat
yourself
together.
in the deep end.
Yeah, and it really was. It was a huge learning curve, just bringing together 10, 12 girls on one boat for a specific reason. Somehow it worked out, and it's evolved into what it is now, which is the trips. But I think I've figured it out as I was going. I didn't have a plan for that.
And you're known now for your incredible surf trips.
Yes.
What goes into planning a surf trip? How do you pick out the destination, what you're going to do, the people that are going to be coming on? Obviously, you have them sign up. And I also read that they have to be intermediate at surfing. So what goes into those types of thought processes?
So as I started doing the trips, every trip has been a bit of a learning curve for me, and I see what needs to be done, what needs to be refined, and what needs to be a little better. And just with the specifics of me hosting it on boats, land camps are a little bit easier logistically for people to go on. Things like boats, people get seasick. People maybe are not used to surfing over reef breaks. There's just so many little things that as I've done more and more trips, I've realized people need to have a certain level in their skills or just a certain comfortability. That's not a word. Certain comfort.
It works.
It works, comfortability. Just be comfortable in the ocean and confident and be able to take care of themselves, because we have had instances where, for example, beginners really don't know what to do and they find themselves caught in a rip or caught on the inside and they struggle to get back. And that's a really terrifying experience for them. It's a terrifying experience for me. I'm not qualified to teach anyone. I'm just qualified to bring in the fun.
Yeah.
But to answer the first part of your question, I picked them based on what I wanted to do. It was always just a personal preference, and what I love doing, it just so happens that other girls love doing. And so it's just built on that, really.
I mean, it just looks like such a fun trip all around. I have seen you do little activities during the trips. Can you tell us about how you plan? Do you have a criteria, or is it more of a go with the flow type of trip?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everything's go with the flow. My co-host Kate and I, we really just kind of wing it. But we've noticed that as more trips go on, there's a bit of a formula into what makes a successful trip. It's usually lots of music, very early in the morning, getting the girls hyped, card games, group games. The thing with a boat is that you're on there for 10 days. You're trapped. There's nowhere to go. So you better be a people person. Even if you're not, you can go down to your cabin. But it just brings out a different type of energy in people, where you're just surrounded by all this fun energy and you just kind of ride with it. But no, we don't really plan anything. all the trips are different, but they're the same structurally, I suppose.
Yeah. And the more you have done them, the more easier
the more
it gets to happen. Has there ever been, obviously you said with beginners there's been some scary situations, but have you ever had a situation where something has happened and you don't really know what you're doing, like a first time, or where maybe someone's vibe is just off and you need to like reroute the group or?
That's a sticky question. Yeah. We've had a few hiccups where we were like, let's sort that out when we get to land type of things. Yeah. Nothing shocking. I'm very lucky. It takes a specific kind of person to want to join these trips. You have to have a sense of adventure, a real sense of flexibility. Things don't always go to plan. A lot of the time, things don't always go to plan. A lot of the time, there's one storm where there's rocky seas and everyone has to strap in. And there's always one girl who gets really, really seasick and is vomiting off the side of the boat. You got to go support her, hold her hair back.
That would be me.
Do you get seasick?
I don't think I've been on a boat long enough to get seasick. Yeah. But I think if there was a storm or massive waves, I would be pretty nervous.
Yeah. Look, we've had this last trip we just had, the girls were so good because it was rough seas and they were such good sports about it. And you do have to have that kind of attitude where like, this is what I signed up for.
Yeah. I'm here now. What can I do?
I'm here now. What are we going to do? But yeah, no, I'm lucky. No one's ever been a big drama queen.
That's good.
Surfers are pretty easygoing. We've had a few where they were not really surfers and they didn't understand the flexibility and like, well, the wind's this way today and the swell's actually that way, so we're not going to surf here. We're actually going to go somewhere else and that kind of stuff. But no major cat fights that I can remember. That's good.
I feel like if you're on a surf trip, you're on a boat, everyone's just trying to enjoy themselves.
Exactly.
I feel like it's kind of, it's not going to happen.
You're on holiday. How much can you complain? How angry can you really get?
You're in such a beautiful place where the weather's nice and you're just hanging out.
Yeah, it's hard to get upset.
Going into your personal surfing journey, you have said that you were a late bloomer in the sport. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Obviously, why you feel that way and how your surfing journey has evolved.
Yeah. So I guess I'm a late bloomer because I started when I was maybe 20, 21, when I moved to Australia. I dabbled in it before. Living in Florida, we always boogie boarded, spent so much time in the ocean. So I really had that sense of just ease in the water. Yeah. However, it's only till I moved here to Australia that I actually was like, I'm going to surf every day. I'm going to get better at this. This is what I want to do as a hobby and I just want to get good at it. So I started maybe, 2021, dedicated to going every day. Surfing is...
It's a big dedication.
And look, it's a hard sport. It is very difficult to get the hang of. And to this day, like even if I see some videos of myself, no one ever likes to because it's just, you just look like a kook. You feel like a kook. Unless you were born surfing when you were like a grom and your parents took you out, no one's ever really an amazing surfer, or they don't feel amazing at it. So it's just embracing that. Hey, you just are what you are.
Was there a reason why you decided to commit to surfing, or was it just a hobby you wanted to pick up?
I was just obsessed with surfers and Blue Crush and just that whole world of Roxy, all that stuff. That's who I was. I felt like that was my identity. So, yeah.
And you also make a point of surfing with women and empowering women. Why do you not like surfing in mixed gender groups generally?
I don't mind it at all. Most of the time I'll go surf and there's more men than women. I encourage these sorts of trips and women surfing together because we're such a minority in the water.
Definitely.
And it is such an intimidating environment to be in. They usually don't feel like, women, that being said, don't feel like there's enough of us in the water, and that it's a little scary sometimes being surrounded by men. It's that macho energy. It's a sport that shouldn't be taken seriously, that is taken extremely seriously for a lot of people, and you'll be out there and there's like a gruffy old salty sea dog and he's just upset because I don't know, there's too many people in the water and that kind of energy.
It's my waves.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, just having that group of women that support each other and are like, hey, it's okay. Like, you can fall off the wave or you can suck a little bit and we're all going to be here for you. And a lot of the time I just realized women don't think that they are good enough to be surfing, or they just feel like they don't really deserve to be there. And when you surf with women, you just find that it's a lot nicer, encouraging environment to be in. And it's something that just makes them feel
less intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely. And just feel included and like they can do it as well. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to be amazing at it. You can just enjoy it for what it is, a fun hobby.
Yeah. And this community that you've created in empowering women out on the waves, how do you feel that has evolved over time, and what has been your favorite part of the evolvement so far?
Honestly, it's just meeting the girls from all over the world. The trips bring together all walks of life. And we have some very interesting people that come on the trips that have amazing stories to tell and jobs that they have, or maybe they have really corporate lives and this is their escape. And just hearing all these stories, it's given me ideas for future trips. It's given me inspiration to offer something new and diverse that makes them want to come back. It's just been very amazing meeting so many different people.
And getting to hear their stories, I bet. The stories you would have been told out on these trips on the boats or just within your community would be crazy, I believe.
Yeah.
You have, like you said, worked with incredible companies like Gap and Roxy, which you used to look up to, and you have built your own strong personal brand. How do you figure out whether a brand's vision and values align with yours before you work with them?
That's a good question. It's a very instinctual thing, I feel like.
Yes.
I've worked a lot on myself to understand what I stand by and what I feel is right for me. So when a brand approaches me, I think I'll know straight away if they're right or not, just by how they speak to me, how they reach out, or the type of conversations that we have. It's a very instinctual thing, I feel like.
And you have also released your own ebook, Pitching Paradise. Congratulations. That's so amazing.
Thank you.
And it is aimed at helping women who want to get into content creation and market themselves, personal branding, all of that stuff. What do you think is the biggest piece of advice that up and coming or people that want to start content creation look over within your book, or just in general?
I think in general, just make it messy. It's okay. Messy action is better than nothing. I still abide by that rule every time. It is about putting one step in front of the other. Sometimes you don't know what something's going to look like. You just really have to trust. And as long as you're taking the step in that direction that you want to go, you're going to get somewhere. A lot of the time we prevent ourselves from starting something or going through something because we feel like it needs to be perfect, or things need to align and everything needs to be correct. But that never happens. So really just trusting that the way you start is maybe not the way you're going to finish, but at least you've started.
It's one step closer.
And fake it till you make it. Like, just believe you're that person until you get to be that person.
Fake it till you make it, I think, is the biggest piece of advice anyone can take, as cliche as it is. It works.
It's so underrated. People don't talk about this enough, but if you just act as if you are there already, that's half the work done.
And people don't know you on social media, so they don't actually know if you're like that or not.
No one knows anything. No one knows what they're doing. That's like the biggest, such a relaxing thing to know. No one knows what they're doing, because it lets you just figure it out along the way and be who you want to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your saying in your brand and your whole philosophy, no shoes, no worries, is more than just a lifestyle. It's about empowerment, the simplicity. Do you ever find yourself getting caught up in your work schedule or just the stresses of life? And is there a moment that you always go back to help reinforce that philosophy for yourself?
Okay, this is great because I should do this more.
I feel like we all should.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, she's teaching me my own lesson. That's a really good point. Things have gotten hectic. I think leading up to Christmas, things
Definitely.
lead up and they just pile on and you're here and you're like a headless chicken running around trying to get everything done. No shoes, no worries. Definitely should spend more time not worrying without her shoes. But you get caught up. I spend a lot of the time outdoors to reconnect and just ground. And I do need that alone time. My job is very social, whether it be the trips or modeling or whatever. I'm constantly talking or exchanging ideas.
Even just online, on social media.
Or being in communication. And it does feel like a lot sometimes. So having those moments, just a bit of routine in my day with like the non-negotiables in the morning, with the outdoor walks and the gyms and stuff like that, just hanging on to the little pieces of things I do for myself helps me get through all of it, for sure. Surfing being one of them, of course.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And is there an experience you've had in your personal life or your professional life that always helps bring you back and regain focus into why you're doing what you're doing?
Is there a moment you say?
Yeah.
Whenever I'm on the trips and the girls who have met maybe 24 hours before are all hugging and singing along and chatting to themselves as if they'd known each other their whole lives, and they finish the trip saying, "You guys are my sisters forever," that connection that I was able to facilitate for them it brings me such a sense of purpose. And whenever things get tough or whatever, or I just need a reminder of why I'm doing it, it's really that connection with the girls and how they come together that just keeps fueling me.
It's amazing. I mean, I bet you're on a boat with however many other girls and I can just imagine them all leaving feeling like they're best friends. And do the girls generally stay in communication? Do you stay in communication with them all? Because I feel like that would be a lot of people to juggle.
It is, but you know what? We start group chats. We always have a group chat before the trip. And then by the end of the trip, we've renamed it some sort of inside joke. And the jokes keep running and the conversations keep going and we're always chatting. And yeah, there's maybe a few that, you don't talk to as much, but a lot of the time girls come back on trips. So we get so many repeat girls and it's so nice to see them. A lot of the girls connect with one another in different countries when they're traveling. They just really keep that connection going, which is amazing to see.
And you have, like we've already said, accomplished so much from modeling to content creation and your book and your surf trips, just to name a couple. Is there anything that you haven't done yet, personal or professional, that you are looking forward to doing? Is there anything coming up for the new year that you're going to be putting out?
There's one thing, but I can't talk about it yet.
Can you give us a hint?
Well, it'll be something that I've been working towards, I think, for the last few years. It will make sense to everyone who's ever been on a trip. It's a product and it'll be hopefully offering a solution for a lot of girls who come on the trips and have this one same problem. But for me, longevity, it's tough. I think with content creation and modeling, your career span can only go so far. It doesn't have an expiration date, but you continuously have to evolve with it.
Definitely.
And sort of map out where you're going. So it's a constant work in progress. But for me, what I aim for is longevity. So whether that be with whatever businesses or by businesses that I start from the trips, it's constantly ticking over in my head.
And how many trips a year do you generally do? Like next year, do you have a set plan of when you're going to do them?
Organized.
Or it's just go with the flow?
So this year I did 6. I didn't plan on doing 6, but that's just how it happened. Next year, I'm aiming to do the same number for sure. I don't know if it'll be less or more. I have a few personal trips I'm going on, but yeah, 6 is enough. I do like to be home and just ground for a minute.
Yeah,
so
I can't imagine traveling all over the place. I mean, to these beautiful places, but being home is a different type of feeling.
Oh, it's the best feeling.
And if you could plan an unlimited budget, you can go anywhere, do anything, surf trip, what would it be and where would you go?
So many options. I went to Fiji this year. I stayed on Namotu Island.
I love Fiji. It's beautiful.
Have you been?
I have been. I've been a couple of times. I went when I was a kid with my whole
Yeah.
family, but I just remember it being one of my favorite places other than Hawaii.
I was just blown away by how beautiful. I felt like Moana. Just like
and the culture there, the
is
people.
fantastic. And Fiji's, the island I went on, it's quite pricey, but it was like a playground for humans. There was fishing and snorkeling and surfing and just all these amazing activities. And unlimited budget, I'd just sail around Fiji and the islands and on a yacht.
Yeah.
And make it comfy and just make it really bougie. That would be a dream.
And my final question for you is, obviously you just said you would love to go to Fiji. If you could go anywhere to surf, where would it be? Would it be Fiji also, or?
Tahiti is very high on my list. French Polynesia, I have not yet been. Love to go. I don't know much about the waves there. I've just seen how beautiful it is. I have a friend who lives there, so hopefully she'd show me around. Where else? There's so many places in the world. I'm lucky. I've been to a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you've lived a million different lives.
I can't believe that actually. Wow. But yeah, Tahiti is probably very high up there for me.
Is there anywhere that you would be too scared to surf at?
So many places. North Shore, Hawaii, Pipe. There's so many scary waves out there that I don't think I'd ever go near. I can handle myself in the surf, but when it comes to like 8-foot barreling waves, I'm not your girl.
I'm like the calm surf.
I'm a cute girl surfer. I just like to look cute on my longboard and just sunshine, blue waves.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was so refreshing having you here and getting to hear all about your incredible journey you've been on. And I will definitely be getting my surfing skills up to par because I will be coming on one of your trips in probably 5 years by the time I get good enough.
That would be so fun. Please do. It would be so good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Such a good time.